The First Minister's reply to the debate.
Llywydd, diolch yn fawr, and thank you to all members who've taken part in what I think has been an excellent and passionate debate. Brexit has been an engine for constitutional innovation, and this afternoon, for the first time, we are jointly, in all different places, debating with the Scottish Parliament on an identical motion placed by the two governments before the two parliaments. And we're doing that for a very important reason. Because by acting uniquely in this way, we hope that our votes tonight will put further pressure on the Prime Minister to do the right thing, to live up to the responsibilities that have been placed in her hands, and to act in a way that defends the interests of families and working people in Scotland and in Wales. Now, in recent months, the Welsh Government and the Scottish Government have been clear that no deal would be a catastrophic outcome. And as members have made it clear here this afternoon, that's the proposition that we are debating this afternoon. That is the possibility that we are united in our calls in Scotland and in Wales to say to the UK Government to take decisive action to ensure that no deal cannot be the way in which we leave the European Union. I made a joint statement with the First Minister of Scotland last month. We called on the Prime Minister to take no deal off the table and seek an immediate extension to the Article 50 process. Members in this chamber said, when we debated it on the 7th of February, that there was no time to waste. But the Prime Minister has done exactly that. She has relied on a tactic of running down the clock to force a choice between her damaging deal and no deal. And she has succeeded in persuading even as reasonable an individual as David Melding that that is the choice that we face. But it's not the choice, Llywydd. It's not the choice that we have to face. It is not a choice that whole swathes of Mrs May's own cabinet are prepared to take. They don't believe that her deal is the best deal, and neither do we. Now, the Prime Minister says that keeping no deal on the table strengthens her hand in the negotiations. How she is able to cling to that outdated and failed proposition is a matter of amazement to many. And it is certainly not the case that it is doing us any good now. Jeremy Miles, in opening the debate, said that I had been in Brussels and in Paris last week holding St David's Day events on behalf of Wales. I was taken aback by the extent to which people who are friends of the United Kingdom said to me that the Prime Minister's decision to vote for the Brady Amendment had punctured whatever credibility she still had. Here was a Prime Minister who struck a deal with the European Union and then was prepared to vote against the deal that she herself had struck. Any sense that keeping no deal on the table is somehow strengthening her hand in those circumstances bears no resemblance to the reality of the situation at all. What is real is that the risk of no deal strengthens. We heard the true voice of no-deal Brexit in the chamber here this afternoon. For Mark Reckless, the decision of people in a referendum in 2016 is so absolute that he would, as Carwyn Jones said, be happy to take us off a cliff in the dark and without a torch.
I apologise, Minister, for intervening, but there is one point that has disturbed me, something that Mark Reckless said, which surprised me, I have to say, when he said that we should have the opportunity to impose large tariffs on Irish beef. Yes. If that is the case, that means tariffs between the UK and Ireland, it means customs, it means a hard border, it means the ending of the Good Friday Agreement and the jeopardising of peace on our neighbouring island. Do you agree that that is not a price that is anything worth remotely paying in order to get Brexit through?
I absolutely, Llywydd, agree with what the member for Bridgend has said, and it is in the recklessness of that sort of proposition that you see what a no-deal Brexit would mean. It's carelessness about peace on the island of Ireland. It's willingness to sacrifice whole swathes of the Welsh economy in pursuit of that ideological end. I think you advised another member of the number of times that they had spoken in the debate.
You can't allow
and
that
I think
to be said about me and not
considerably
give me
more
a
latitude has been allowed there. Instead, Llywydd, the member can shout at me from the standing position, but I'm not doing anything to please him in this debate. Instead, Llywydd, I agree absolutely with what my colleague Alan Davies said. Democracy is the right to disagree. It is the right to be in a minority and to continue to argue for your cause. It is the opposite of the absolutist view that in one single vote the winner takes all and the winner holds all in perpetuity. That is the negation of democracy. But it is that absolutist view that means that in the hands of those who hold those views, we are heading to that cliff, and that cliff edge only 24 days away from now. So, as you have heard, the Government will vote against the Plaid Cymru amendment, not because of the arguments made in favour of it, but because I believe it puts tactics ahead of strategy. The strategic gain today is for parties on the progressive left of politics, in Wales and in Scotland, to vote together in favour of propositions which have already been endorsed here in this Assembly and which become more urgent with every single day. The force of that argument will be significantly strengthened by the endorsement of an identical motion in both Parliaments. That's why we will vote against the Plaid Cymru amendment, because were it to pass, it will dilute the impact of parliamentary unanimity. It will be used by the Conservative government to suggest that Wales and Scotland are, after all, not united behind the propositions put in front of the two parliaments by two very different governments, but governments of one mind on the matters put before members here today. I agreed with Lynn Eagle that we need to be clear and we need to be unequivocal. That's why we must not vote for an amendment that introduces equivocation between this National Assembly and the vote that will be held in the Scottish Parliament. I agree with Alan Davies that this is our opportunity to demonstrate a solidarity in the face of a threat that otherwise has the danger of a broken Britain. In Scotland, opposition parties with every bit as much of belief in a second referendum as Plaid Cymru have been willing to make those points in the debate, but not to seek to obscure the force of a single motion through amendment. Here is what my colleague Richard Leonard said in that debate when he talked about the path that Mrs May has followed, and said then that when she fails, then there is no choice but to go back to the people in a public vote with a credible leave option as well as a remain option on the ballot paper. It's not because we disagree with the sentiments, but because we want to send one single united message on these matters from this Parliament and from the Scottish Parliament too.
Did the leader of the Scottish Labour Party also not say that his preference is for a revised deal? And is that a position of the Welsh Labour Party?
Well, the position of the Welsh Labour Party is the position that our party and his party signed up to together. That's the position. It is not such an incredible matter that the Plaid Cymru leader wants to shake his head at me at a set of propositions which his party signed up to in this Assembly when he set out
First
a
Minister,
set.
give way.
Yeah, we'll do.
The question
one more
that
time.
was put to the leader of the Labour Party is, what is his preference for a people's vote or for a revised deal? He said a revised deal. We're clear that our preference is for a people's vote. What's your position?
My position is the position that your party and my party signed up to together. That's my position. Now, it's not your position because you moved away from that position. But my position is that there was a deal to be done, a deal that would have protected the Welsh economy and jobs. It's a deal that you signed up to, your party signed up to. It may not suit you now, but it suited you then. Today you've changed your mind. That's fine. I don't mind that at all. Absolutely, it's called democracy, and you're entitled to change your mind. What you're not entitled to do is to suggest that somehow the position that we take, which was the position you took, is somehow not to be supported. The position I take is the position I've said time after time, and it's why we won't vote for his amendment, because actually, in the end, what he is interested in is this sort of petty political point scoring, this sort of tactical nonsense that he indulges in here in the floor of the Assembly. My position is this: let a deal be done. If a deal can't be done, then it has to go back to the people. Then we're in favour of people's vote. That's the position we support. I say it again, I've got no difficulty with it whatsoever. So let me move to a close, by quoting what my colleague, the Scottish First Minister, said about today's debate. She said, "It is worth emphasising that this is the first occasion in 20 years of devolution. The Scottish and Welsh Parliaments have acted in unison in this way. We have been brought together by our dismay, bordering now on despair at the UK government's approach to Brexit. The motion provides the basis, even at this late hour, for a more sensible and less damaging approach. By doing so, it allows us to act in the interest not just of our own constituents, but of the UK as a whole, indeed of Europe as a whole. I commend it," Nicola Sturgeon said, "I commend it, and hope that members both of the Scottish Parliament and our friends in the Assembly will vote for it this evening. With Llywydd, I commend it too. I agree with Derek Jewell. This is not a parlour game. Let us speak with one voice on one common proposition. And as the UK government moves to a set of decisive votes next week, let us leave no one in any doubt of the views of Scotland and of Wales. Vote for the proposition put by this government in front of this Assembly, by the Scottish Government in front of the Scottish Parliament, and let us speak in that common voice and in a common cause, because that is the way in which we will maximise our influence and put that pressure we need to bring on the Prime Minister to do the right thing and to ensure that the interests of our people are put at the heart of the deal that she will strike with the European Union.